Most men believe emotional attachment begins with attraction. They think if a woman laughs enough, texts enough, or desires him enough, she'll eventually become emotionally connected. But attraction and emotional attachment are not the same thing. A woman can feel attracted to many men, but emotional attachment, that happens far more rarely. Because emotional attachment begins the moment she feels emotionally safe enough to stop performing. Welcome back to the Female Mind Lab. There's a side of most women the world never truly sees. A version of her hidden underneath politeness, emotional caution, and silent self-protection. She learns very early that showing too much emotion can be risky, that being fully vulnerable with the wrong person can lead to judgment, rejection, or emotional abandonment. So over time, she adapts. She smiles when something hurts her. She says, "I'm fine," when she feels emotionally overwhelmed. She hides certain insecurities because experience taught her that many people only love the polished version of her. And this is where most men completely misunderstand female psychology. They think emotional attachment is created through chasing, impressing, or constant attention. But often, the woman who becomes deeply attached isn't attaching to the man who entertained her the most. She's attaching to the man around whom she finally felt emotionally safe. Safe enough to speak without carefully filtering every word. Safe enough to admit fears she normally hides. Safe enough to be imperfect. Because when a woman no longer feels the need to emotionally defend herself around a man, her nervous system slowly begins associating him with peace instead of pressure, and that changes everything. You can actually see this shift happen in small moments. At first, she responds carefully. She thinks before every message. She hides emotional reactions. She tries to appear emotionally composed. But slowly, around the right man, she starts becoming softer without realizing it. Her conversations become more honest. Her silence becomes more comfortable. Her emotional walls stop feeling necessary. And ironically, this usually happens with the man who is not desperately trying to force connection. He listens without rushing to fix her. He doesn't shame her emotions. He doesn't weaponize her vulnerability later during conflict. He stays emotionally calm when she opens up instead of making her feel too much. That emotional safety becomes addictive because it is rare, especially in modern relationships where so many interactions feel transactional, performative, or emotionally shallow. And this is the part most people never notice. The woman who feels emotionally safe with a man slowly starts attaching pieces of herself to him. Not because he manipulated her emotions, not because he constantly chased validation from her, but because her mind finally found a place where it could rest. And when a woman emotionally rests in a man's presence, attachment quietly begins growing underneath the surface, long before she even says it out loud. A woman may listen to a man talk for hours and still feel emotionally disconnected from him. And then suddenly, one quiet observation from another man stays in her mind for years. Not because it was dramatic, but because it made her feel emotionally seen. Most people hear words. Very few people notice emotions hiding underneath them. And this is one of the deepest reasons a woman becomes emotionally attached to one man only. He understands what she feels without needing her to explain every layer of it. Because the truth is, women often communicate emotions indirectly, not to play games, but because emotions are complicated. Sometimes even she struggles to fully explain what she feels in the moment. So instead of directly saying, "I feel hurt," she becomes quieter. Instead of saying, "I feel emotionally neglected," she becomes distant. Instead of saying, "I need reassurance," she may suddenly become colder. Most men only react to behavior, but the man she emotionally attaches to pays attention to emotional patterns. Welcome back to the Female Mind Lab. Imagine a woman sitting across from a man at dinner. She smiles. She answers questions. Everything looks normal on the surface. But internally, she feels emotionally drained. One man continues talking about himself without noticing anything. Another man pauses for a second and quietly says, "You seem a little somewhere else tonight." That moment matters more than most men realize. Because psychologically, Being emotionally understood creates intimacy faster than attraction alone. It tells her, "I see beyond your surface." And women rarely forget that feeling, especially in a world where many people only pay attention when emotions become dramatic. The emotionally intelligent man notices small emotional shifts early, the change in her energy, the delayed replies that feel emotionally heavier than usual, the way her voice sounds different when she's trying to hide stress, not in an obsessive way, not in a controlling way, but in a deeply present way. And presence is becoming rare. That's why emotional attachment often forms quietly, not during huge romantic moments, but during small moments of emotional recognition. When she says she's tired, and he understands it's deeper than physical exhaustion. When she says nothing's wrong, and instead of forcing answers, he gently creates emotional space. When she pulls away emotionally, and instead of reacting with ego, he responds with calm understanding. This creates something powerful inside her mind. She stops feeling emotionally alone, because one of the loneliest experiences in relationships is feeling misunderstood while constantly being physically present. And when a woman finally meets a man who understands the emotions she struggles to explain herself, she naturally becomes more emotionally open with him, more connected, more attached. Because emotional attachment is not built only through attraction or chemistry, it is built through emotional recognition. The feeling that someone truly understands the parts of you that the rest of the world keeps missing. One of the biggest misunderstandings about love is this idea that emotional attachment grows through constant emotional intensity. It doesn't. In reality, many women become emotionally exhausted in relationships where emotions constantly feel unstable, unpredictable, or chaotic. High passion may create excitement in the beginning, but emotional stability is what creates deep attachment over time. Because when a woman experiences a man who remains emotionally grounded during difficult moments, something inside her slowly begins to trust him on a deeper psychological level. Welcome back to the Female Mind Lab. Every woman has emotional storms, moments where stress, insecurity, overthinking, fear, frustration, or emotional confusion temporarily take over her emotions. Sometimes it has nothing to do with the man at all. It could be pressure from life, past emotional wounds, silent disappointments, or internal fears she hasn't fully processed yet. But during those moments, she unconsciously observes the emotional stability of the man beside her. Not what he says during perfect moments, but who he becomes during emotionally uncomfortable ones. Many men fail this test without realizing it. The moment she becomes distant, they panic. The moment she gets emotional, they become defensive. The moment tension appears, their ego takes control. And suddenly, instead of feeling emotionally safe, the relationship becomes another source of emotional pressure. But the man she deeply attaches to responds differently. He does not become cold just because she becomes emotional. He does not explode simply because she feels overwhelmed. And he does not lose his emotional center every time conflict appears. That calmness affects her deeply. Because emotional steadiness in a man creates psychological safety in a woman. It signals strength without aggression, leadership without control, masculinity without emotional chaos. And this is something many women secretly crave but struggle to describe. Not perfection, not robotic emotionlessness, but emotional control. Imagine a moment where she's upset after a difficult day. Her tone becomes sharper, her energy feels heavier. Another man immediately reacts emotionally, turning the situation into an argument about himself. But the grounded man pauses. He listens. He stays composed. And instead of trying to win the moment, he tries to understand it. That response changes the emotional atmosphere completely. Because women often attach deeply to men who make them feel emotionally protected during moments when they feel least emotionally attractive. Anyone can love someone during easy moments. But emotional attachment strengthens when a woman realizes a man's emotional presence does not disappear the second things become uncomfortable. And over time, this consistency becomes incredibly powerful. She starts trusting his reactions, trusting his energy, trusting that his emotions are not constantly unstable. And once emotional trust becomes consistent, her guard slowly lowers without her even noticing. Because deep female attachment is not built only through romance, chemistry, or attraction. Sometimes it's built through something much quieter, the feeling that no matter how emotionally heavy life becomes, his presence still feels emotionally steady. A woman can be desired by many men and still feel emotionally invisible. Because being physically wanted and being emotionally valued are two completely different experiences. And this is where deep emotional attachment begins separating itself from surface-level attraction. Most men notice a woman's beauty first: her appearance, her body, her smile, the energy she brings into a room. But the man a woman becomes deeply attached to is usually the one who slowly makes her feel seen beyond all of that. Welcome back to the Female Mind Lab. There's a quiet exhaustion many women carry that they rarely speak about openly. The feeling that people are interested in them, but not truly interested in who they are underneath the surface. Some men admire her beauty but never notice her emotional exhaustion. Some enjoy her attention but never ask about her fears. Some desire her physically but never try to understand her mind, her emotional world, or the silent insecurities she hides from everyone else. And after enough experiences like this, a woman begins emotionally protecting herself. She starts wondering whether anyone truly sees her beyond what she provides emotionally or physically. Then one man comes into her life and notices the details nobody else notices. Not performatively, not to manipulate her, but naturally. He remembers small things she casually mentioned weeks ago. He notices when her energy changes, even when she pretends everything is fine. He pays attention to the things she cares about, not just the things that benefit him. And slowly, she starts feeling emotionally significant around him. That feeling is powerful, because one of the deepest emotional desires in human psychology is the desire to feel uniquely understood, not replaceable, not generic, not emotionally interchangeable with everyone else, unique. Imagine a woman talking about a childhood memory she rarely shares. Most people would hear the story and move on. But the emotionally intelligent man notices the emotion hidden inside the story. The loneliness, the insecurity, the emotional wound she never fully healed from. And instead of dismissing it, joking about it, or trying to immediately fix it, he treats it carefully. That changes her emotionally. Because women become deeply attached to men who make them feel emotionally safe to reveal hidden parts of themselves, especially the parts they fear may be too much for others. And over time, this emotional attention creates loyalty. Not because she feels controlled, but because she feels emotionally valued in a way that becomes difficult to replace. Physical attraction may open the door, but emotional attachment grows when a woman realizes a man genuinely appreciates the person behind her appearance, her thoughts, her emotional patterns, her dreams, her quiet struggles, her hidden softness. And once a woman feels emotionally chosen for who she truly is, instead of merely how she looks, her connection to that man often becomes far deeper than even she expected. Some men become emotionally predictable too quickly. Others become emotionally unavailable to the point where a woman never truly feels connected to them at all. But the men women become deeply attached to usually exist somewhere in the middle. They offer emotional consistency without losing emotional depth, and that balance is rare. Welcome back to the Female Mind Lab. One of the strongest psychological drivers of emotional attachment is emotional certainty mixed with curiosity. A woman needs to feel secure enough to trust a man emotionally, but at the same time, she also wants to feel that there are still layers to him she has not fully discovered yet. Because human emotions naturally drift away from what feels completely predictable, and they also pull away from what feels emotionally unsafe. But when a man combines reliability with emotional depth, something powerful begins happening inside her mind. She feels emotionally grounded around him, while still feeling emotionally intrigued by him. And intrigue creates emotional investment, not through manipulation, not through playing hard to get, but through depth, The emotionally attached woman often feels like she's constantly discovering new emotional layers within the same man. His mindset, his emotional intelligence, his discipline, his calmness under pressure, his quiet ambitions, the way he sees life differently from most people. There's substance underneath his surface, and women emotionally bond deeply with substance, especially in a world filled with shallow attention and temporary emotional connections. Think about it psychologically. If a man becomes emotionally available too quickly without any emotional depth, the connection may feel safe but emotionally flat. But if a man becomes mysterious while emotionally inconsistent, the relationship starts creating anxiety instead of attachment. The strongest emotional bonds usually happen when both emotional safety and emotional curiosity exist together. That's why emotionally grounded men often become unforgettable. They are emotionally present, but not emotionally dependent, warm, but not desperate, confident, but not performative. They have an inner emotional world that feels calm, purposeful, and difficult to fully predict. And women naturally become curious about emotionally centered men because calm depth feels rare. Imagine a woman spending time with a man who is fully present with her, fully attentive, yet still deeply connected to his own purpose, discipline, and emotional identity outside the relationship. She feels his consistency, but she also feels his independence, and psychologically that creates respect alongside attraction. Over time, this balance keeps emotional attachment alive because she never feels emotionally neglected, yet she also never feels like the relationship has lost emotional depth. And in many relationships, emotional attachment dies the moment mystery disappears completely and emotional growth stops. But when a woman feels that a man continues evolving emotionally while remaining emotionally steady beside her, her attachment often deepens instead of fading. Because ultimately, women do not emotionally attach only to comfort. They attach to emotional experiences that make them feel both safe and emotionally alive. I hope this video helped you understand relationships and human emotions from a deeper perspective. If you enjoy this kind of psychological content, stay connected with the Female Mind Lab, and I'll see you in the next video.